Hey, this is Jeff from Aegis Knife Works. Just wanted to take an opportunity to do an introduction video for the Xiphos that has been under development. I know for the last, over 2 months, I've been posting pictures and kind of doing things on Instagram and Facebook and the USN. Wanted to give an opportunity to have a look at it in video format. This one's taken a little bit longer just simply because I use this as an opportunity to learn a lot of new things and to play with things that I just wanted to try. Fortunately, it worked out. So at any rate, this is the Xiphos model with a couple of improvements over some of the stuff I've done in the past, and I'll kind of go over those individually. But some of the things, for example, that I wanted to try were things like a pivot collar, working that on the lathe and turning those out. I also wanted to try to find a way to resolve issues with the radius scale and the way the pocket clip met up with it, and I did that by, again, working with a lathe a little bit and creating standoffs for the pocket clips, and doing some cool things with that. Also made a lot of improvements to the model itself, or not improvements necessarily, but kind of things that I wanted to try. So I guess first things first, some of the major differences obviously between this and the Hoplite, which I've done in the past. Did an internal stop pin. It just gives a little bit more flexibility in design. It's not necessarily better, it just gives more flexibility in design with the flipper tab and the way things kind of made up. For example, one of the things that was important to me was to try to get the surfaces flush. So if you look like where the tang comes in when the blade is closed, there's nothing of the blade protruding past this particular point, but also here this is flush with the scales. I wanted that. Also changed the flipper tab design a little bit from what I had done on the Hoplite in the past. One of the things that I did was I actually turned this down instead of having it pointed up and soften the edges. So there's a chamfer all the way around the flipper tab on both sides, and so there's no sharp corners necessarily, but there's also some jimping here so that you can grip it. But it's turned down a little bit, so it's just more comfortable for the finger when you go to flip it. Some of the other things that I did, obviously the pivot collar, talked a little bit about that, but wanted to do that to offset some color and maybe add some diversity to the way these look. Did a hole pattern, which is not a big deal. I mean, it's pretty much just drilling and chamfering the insides a little bit. Just give it a little bit of texture. Smooth titanium is nice, but this adds texture to it for a little bit more grip. Some of the other things, obviously, I did a lot of milling and lathe work actually on the pivot. So I changed this up. Instead of it just being kind of a flat pivot or just recessed in, I wanted to do something that matched the screw heads. So you have the 3-prong thing there. Just wanted to try to replicate some of that, and I was able to do some pretty neat stuff that I hadn't done before on a mill and a lathe to take an opportunity to learn. Some of the other things, pocket clip. I kind of built in a portion of my logo into the pocket clip. I don't know if you can see this, but in the logo itself, get a close-up of that, there is a Spartan shield within the Greek letter L, which is just kind of like an A without the line through it. That line through it is actually a spear that's in the logo to make it look like an A. But at any rate, I just wanted to incorporate that imagery into the pocket clip itself. So built that in here, just a little design thing, not very functional necessarily, just something to add a little bit of something cool to it. The other things, as far as the blade grind on the Hoplite, obviously it was a hollow grind. This actually incorporates a hollow grind through the main bevel here, but also did a swedge and a Tonto grind on this. So this is flat ground on the tip, hollow ground through the main bevel, and there is I guess a taper that goes with the swedge, so it's not a straight swedge. So I didn't want any sharp edges near the top. I mean, you've already got the jimping, so it started back here around the jimping, and then just kind of increased the taper of the swedge all the way to the tip. From the top, it just kind of basically rounds the edges, but then it kind of gives it a cool look. But it leaves the tip thick, which is what you want on a Tonto. At the same time, it just kind of makes it look a little bit different and more, I guess, streamlined, if you will. Outside of that, when the knife is actually opened, The tang, one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that the tang was even with the scales. So when you look at the scales on the inside, it's flush through here. Everything's kind of just mated up pretty well. Outside of that, I guess decided to etch the logo on some of these. Some of them I didn't. I'm going to probably leave that as an option if someone wants to have that done. On the stonewashed, I went ahead and did it, and on the ones that I did a two-tone satin finish with acid wash, I went ahead and did it because it stands out. On the acid wash blades themselves, it comes out, but it's not necessarily as crisp or clean as it was on something like this. So obviously, between anodizing and doing the logos and learning new things with the lathe, between the pivot collar and the standoffs and the pivot itself, and just doing a bunch of new stuff, wanted to put that out there and give people a chance to see it. That being said, want to do I guess some comparisons. If you wanted to see the size of this compared to, say, some stuff that you may have seen in the past, so this is a Sebenza, the large Sebenza. So it's a tad larger than the large Sebenza. So if you want to get an idea of that, another one. This is the Xiphos 228 mid-tech. It's obviously a little bit larger than that, so I can give you an idea there. One of my favorite knives that I've just recently acquired. I really don't carry it a lot, but I love the mechanical concepts behind it. Is this Caswell. This thing is I just love the engineering concepts behind it. It's just really neat. But at any rate, that's it compared to the Caswell. The blade's obviously longer, handle's about the same size for that one. Maybe some others that you might be familiar with. Pull out a SMF here, so you can see it compared to an SMF. The SMF, I think, is probably, this is the carbon fiber one, but it's probably, I would say, maybe a 1/4 inch. Maybe, yeah, probably maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch or a 1/4 inch longer than the Xiphos is full size. Maybe a little bit more, somewhere in there. At any rate, wanted to give you a chance to see a comparison to the knives that you may have carried in the past. The one that I wanted to talk about real quick and kind of tell what my plan is with it. I have a couple here that I did a little bit different, obviously with the blue and the bronze anodized. I was trying some new stuff, had to polish the scales and then get that ready for anodization. But I did one with a with purple anode parts. All the screws on all of these, by the way, are titanium, so I was able to anodize the screws to match the pivot collars and things like that, and the LBS and all that. This one is purple, so I anodized all the pieces on this purple, but I did zirconium inlay. And the inlay turned out pretty good. After I stonewashed the scales, you can see a little bit of where the edges were softened instead of being milled and sharp. After I stonewashed it, you can kind of see where it softened a little bit, so the mating is still good, but you can see where that's actually been softened a little bit. That being said, it's hard, you can barely feel the transition, so but it's pretty close. I'm having, you have to really try to feel for it to kind of feel a transition. So that's one of the things I was wanting to try as well, was do an inlay pattern of some type, doing some bolstered work eventually, but just really excited about how this turned out. With this one, I did a two-tone blade, so it's got the acid wash with the satin finish on the flats, did it on both sides, fingerprints on there. Also did a little bit more on the pivot, just playing around, put a recess right in the middle. Just wanted to see, play with some different options. But other than that, this one is going to go up for auction. The others I'm going to end up selling, but this one I wanted to do an auction for, and I'm going to put this on the USN subforum as well as on Instagram. And that way, if someone wants it, they have an opportunity to get it. It's not kind of a closed deal. It's kind of it's a tricky situation given the time that I have to work on knives, that I'm not able to get as many out there as some of the other makers. And so, I want to just make sure that whoever wants it has an opportunity to pick it up. That being said, lockup on this one is probably around 40%. Usually I try to get it at 20 to 30. On all of these are pretty much 20 to 30. I think I have one more that may be around 40, but this one's at 40. and the lock faces are carbidized. And I've been flipping this, breaking it in a little bit, or just trying to see what it feels like. Didn't take much break-in, to be honest, but the lock's not moving, so it looks like it's hovering around 40%. But just want to make sure that whoever, if you're going to bid on it, or if something you want to participate in, you kind of knew going in some of those nuances. But that being said, kind of leads into what I'm planning on doing in the future. So one of the things I'm planning on doing is a smaller version of this, and I've already started working on some of this, so I'll just throw out some parts here so you can kind of see a size comparison between what I'm doing now and what I'm planning on doing. So this is the full size frame, obviously, and this is what I'm going to be doing. So it's going to have like a 2.97 or 2.9 something inch blade, so it'll be below 3 inch for those guys who live in states where they can't carry anything larger than 3 inch. And so this will be scaled down version of this. And instead of doing a Tonto, I think I'm going to end up rolling with a drop point style blade. And this will be these are in 3V, CPM 3V steel. For Tontos, I think that's highly desirable for me anyway. But this will probably be CPM 154. So these blades will probably end up being like 0.135 thick or something like that. But I just want to give you a chance to see, this is one project I'm working on. The other thing that this particular batch will fund, or to finish funding, I've already started the process, and I'm kind of just, I guess this is kind of an announcement, just the Hoplite had taken off really well. I wasn't able to produce as many as I would have liked to have. So in an effort to try to get some more out there and give people a chance to get their hands on one, I've actually started a project where with a company where I will be doing a mid-tech. So the Hoplite will probably be available in a mid-tech format in a couple of months, and I'll get pictures and information out there as soon as I get some samples and start wrapping up the process with them. But I'm going to be doing a run initially of about 100. And so those will be available in various ways, but I just want to make sure everyone knew that that's, all of this is going to that, but particularly the auction on this is going to help fund that quite a bit. So I'm excited about getting the Hoplite out there and giving people a chance to see it and get hold of it, maybe even in a little cheaper format that others can afford. Obviously, customs sell for more just because of the time commitment that it takes to get those out there and things like that. But in a mid-tech format, obviously there's a lot of cost savings for the end user too, which I'm sensitive to, or I try to be. At any rate, I think that's pretty much it, but I just wanted you to have a chance to see these and kind of get to know where I'm going and where my head's at. And I will be posting information about where the auction for this will happen and where these will be available for sale soon. But again, just want to give you a chance to see that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot me a message, USN, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it happens to be. Or, you can subscribe and, just shoot me, a message in the comments below. Thanks, guys. Be safe. Have a good one, and I will talk to you soon.